Today I want to talk about expectations and how they can fuck you right up. Literally. If you play into them, right? And you get a choice whether you play into them or not. It's important to become aware of them and what is happening. So what I'm going to do is give you a couple of instances that have happened for me. And talk my way through these so that you may find them relatable to yourself. I want to first talk about expectations and why we have, like, what happens when we have them and when they're not met, right? So if you have an expectation of yourself to be a particular way, to do a certain thing, to meet a certain target result, what's the word I'm looking for? To meet a goal, to meet a certain goal. If you have an expectation of that, right? So it's like, that's just how it is. It has to be like that. You are immediately setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, sometimes things will go the way that you want them to. Sometimes they'll go the way that you plan them to. Sometimes things will happen according to your expectation, right? The thing is, if you always are living in your expectations, you always have this vision of how it should be, what it should look like. You are always going to feel elements of disappointment. Because if it doesn't happen that way, so if you go into it with a narrow-minded view and you are not opening yourself up to the possibility of it going a different way, it could possibly end up at the same result, right? It just mightn't happen the way that you think it should or you think it would. And, there's this saying, it's like, I shouldn't all over myself. Yeah? And what happens is you've got these elements of disappointment that you're actually feeling that are created from an expectation that wasn't met. Now, if we talk about expectations about other people, you have no control over anybody else but yourself. Period. Except for your child. The only one exception is except for your child that can't think or talk or walk for itself. Right? The only thing you have control over is yourself, how you show up, how you react to things, how you act about things, your characteristics, your behaviors, and all of the above and along that line. So when you have expectations of others, what do you really think is going to happen? Disappointment, right? Because they may not do it the way that you like them to do it. They may not do it how you think they should. They may not do it how you see it, right? And this also goes for in work as well, like, in career and businesses, that there's a certain level of expectation. The only difference is, right, when you are employed by a company, or you have a manager or you have a boss, they have a right to have that expectation of you because it is their business, their creation. If you didn't want to do it that way and you see it a different way, it would be a good idea to have a think about doing it yourself, right? Because when you work for somebody, there is a level of expectation or standard, I prefer the word standard, that you need to adhere to, right? The thing is, by trying to gain control, by trying to push your expectations on somebody else, you're trying to gain control of them. Who in the hell likes to be controlled? Nobody. Just quietly, I'm not sure if you like to be controlled, but I certainly don't like to be controlled. So when somebody pushes an expectation on you, what happens, right? They're trying to control you. What happens to somebody who stands in their own power? Ugh, don't want to be near you. Go away. Stop trying to control me. I'll do it my own way. Shows a level of resistance. Fuck it. I'll do what I want. No. Right? So you will bring resistance to the table when you try and control somebody else. Not only that, you'll also bring your disappointment to the table when you're trying to control somebody else. Right? So what can happen is these can really fuck you up, right? And when I say fuck you up, I'm talking about people's expectations of you. And this is the third component I want to talk to you about today, is that living up to the expectations of others. Because they expect you to be a certain way. Because they expect you to react a certain way. They expect you to be the person that you've always been around them. So what happens is, if you don't meet that level of expectation, what is going to happen? They're going to feel elements of disappointment, right? Because you didn't live up to the expectation that they created in their mind that they believe you should have, right? So there's levels of disappointment when you come from that angle. And it's really interesting when you think about it from all different perceptions, right? All different angles when you think about expectations. And it's important to realize and become self-aware of when you're pushing your expectations on somebody else, and when you're pushing the expectations on yourself, or when somebody's actually pushing their expectations on you, right? And you can do a little experiment for yourselves. Like, when I want you to have a think about, what kind of expectations do you, if you have a partner, like somebody you're dating, husband, doesn't matter, you could just be having sex with them, that's fine. Or it could just even be a friend, right? Just, I want you to think of a relationship. And I want you to, that you have in your life, and I want you to think about the expectations that you might have of them. Maybe have a think about the expectations they have of you. Now, what happens when you work with BOSSWOMAN, or you do any kind of self-development or inner work, is that when you are growing and evolving, you're doing the inner work, you're learning about yourself, and you're changing things as you go, right? So we're evolving as humans, things change, things evolve, we grow and we learn, and we become wiser and stronger, and, you know, we have more insight, we become more open. What will happen is things will change, right? Things will change. Little things, might be big things, little things, doesn't matter. And when you're continuously showing up in a relationship with somebody in a particular way, you condition them. You condition them to learn who you are, or how you react, right? So what happens is it becomes an assumption of that's how you are, that's how you react, that's what you're going to say, that's what you're going to do. You know, they'll be upset, they'll be angry at me, without actually giving the other person an opportunity, right? So what happens is, when you show up differently and you don't meet the expectations of how that person perceived it was going to go, it will cause some sort of resistance, or some sort of like pattern interrupt, to be like, what the hell? What is going on with you? What do you mean by that? What the hell? Right? Some people will react. So what will happen is you'll get a lot of reactions when you change, if you don't meet somebody's expectation, because they're not expecting it, right? They expect you to be a particular way, not on purpose, right? It's just you've conditioned them, because that's how you've always been, that's how you are, that's what you're doing, that's how you're being. And then all of a sudden you're evolving and you're changing, then you show up differently, and they're showing up the same, right? So it will create that riff, and like, okay, cool. And what will happen is most people in those moments will react, right? I sure as hell know that I've always been a reactive person. And when you don't, you see somebody handle something completely different, it takes you back. It's like, okay, that's weird. I mean, that's what I say now. I'm like, this is odd. This is different. This is different. What's this about? So like, you know, explain to me, help me understand this a little bit more, right? It's a different way to go about it, instead of being like, what the fuck? What just happened? What are you talking about? I don't understand, right? Instead of being reactive in that sense, I want you, and that's taken me a long time to learn and realize how many expectations I have on others, right? And it wasn't until I realized that I can't control anyone else but myself, that the level of disappointment that I was feeling all the time was actually caused by myself, not by anybody else, right? So it's about looking at the expectations you have for others and actually being able to let them go, drop them, and change them, right? Change them as you go, as you learn, as you grow. And it does take practice. It does take time. It also takes a hell of a lot of time and practice to not be reactive, right? Or to not, I should say, to not be reactive to every single thing. I used to be highly reactive to every single thing, right? Now it's a choice whether I be reactive to something or not, or it depends how much it triggers me or not. So I want to give you a little bit of an example. You guys know that coming back into the new year, I've been a little bit meh, a little bit like, not sure, I don't know what I'm doing with my business, don't know where I want to take it, not sure what I would like to create, not sure how I want to go about it actually. I'm still like processing all the lessons that I learned last year, and there's like a lot going on in my mind, right? So I've been very silent, taking time out for myself. Now, there are people around me that expect me to be a particular way at this time of year, also expect me to be a particular way as a coach. And this is an interesting topic, an interesting concept, because I'm a human being and I go through my own emotions, my own waves, my own cycles, my own processes, experiences, and things, right? So there is a certain level of expectation or standard within my business because, well, I run my business, right? But basically, if I separate me from my business, I am Eliza that works within BOSSWOMAN, and I am a human, not an artificial robot. So if I'm feeling emotions, I will show up and do what is expected of me in terms of my business, right? Show up for the client, create the conversations that are necessary, be there for that client. However, I'm not here to force and fake something to meet the expectation of somebody else, right? And it takes actually a lot of courage and a lot of lady balls to do that, right? Because you don't know how the other person's going to react or act from that. You know how they're going to take it. And also, it's interesting the fact that they are expecting such a reaction from you. However, I have conditioned people to expect me only to be excited prior to last year or the last 2 years. I've expected people to see me as like always hyper energy, always like happy, excited, motivated, like inspiring, like yes, like go get it, adrenaline junkie, like control freak. Like I've conditioned people to expect me to be this way because that's how I've always shown up. And it's the side of me that I've always chosen to show. Until the last couple of years in which I have opened myself up to showing an array of different emotions, array of different waves that I'm going through to help keep it real for you, right? Because not everybody's perfect. Nobody is a freaking robot. Nobody feels this high energy every single day. I don't care what you believe, right? It's my belief that, yes, you can find happiness in every day, but it's not about being happy 24/7, right? It's not about being that high excited 24/7. It's about keeping an even balance, yin and yang, yeah? If you go massively high, you're going to come down at some point, and vice versa, right? So once you get to your lowest of lows, you will pick back up again. It's about having trust and faith in yourself. There goes those words again. Trust and faith in yourself that you will process it and you'll work your way through it. Hence why I like talking to you about this stuff. So what's happened is I've had a few people where there have been like, yeah, Eliza, like are you get up? Are you ready to go? And I'm like, yes, sort of. Actually, you know what? Like, I don't really have much to say. This is how I feel. This is what's happening, right? I can see the disappointment on their faces. I can see that disappointment. Like, is that my problem? No, it's not my problem. It's actually got more to do with them. Are they aware of that? No. Can I enlighten them to that? Yes. right? So it's just something that I'm going through that I'm not on the same level as you right now, or at the moment, or I'm not quite sure whether I will be or whatnot. The most important thing is you are on that level, and what have you got excited and pumped for you, right? So it's about how you can actually relay that back to them. But it's because what happens is when you live up to other people's expectations all the time, that's one person example, right? And a couple of people. So if I'm living up to the expectation of everybody else around me, how the hell am I just going to be me? Feel my emotions, feel my way through things, if I am so goddamn busy living up to the expectations of every other mofo around me. Right? When we wonder why we get so exhausted, we wonder why we feel so disappointed, we wonder why we feel like we're lost, or we don't understand who we are or what's going on. Or no wonder we feel these feelings of of not being something that we should, instead of just being who you are, being open, being honest, being vulnerable, being you in all your glory, on the whole spectrum of emotions and how you feel. More being rather than doing. More feeling rather than suppressing. Right? Less expectations. More openness. Really want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. And if you have an experience, make sure you share it below. It's my insight for expectations today. Don't fuck yourselves up by living up to everybody else's, and stop putting them on other people. Peace.